Good morning, everyone. My name is Will Marie Newton, and I'd like to thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Should you have questions, please type them in the question box, and we will answer them as we go along. If you have further questions after the webinar has ended, please feel free to email me, and I will forward them to the appropriate person that can answer them. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be archived on CABE's website under Professional Development. And now I'd like to introduce Patrice McCarthy, Executive Director and General Counsel.
It's a pleasure to have you join us. We are this morning going to give you a brief overview of the governor's proposed budget, which was released last week, and the components you'll see in the PowerPoint that we have available for you. The specific components address particularly ECS and as well as shortage areas and a few additional proposals that will connect high school students with college credit courses. The important date to note is that the Appropriations Committee will have a public hearing on the education portion of the governor's budget on Thursday, February 23rd. This is one step in the process. There is certainly other legislation pending that would provide additional funding for public education beyond what the governor has proposed. And we encourage you to engage in the process and be in touch with us if we can provide additional assistance to you as you prepare testimony. You can submit that in writing, you can testify in person or by Zoom. So there are lots of opportunities available to engage with the legislature. I'm going to turn it over to Sheila, who will walk us through the PowerPoint.
Good morning. Just wanted to let most of you know that we're just going to do a quick run through. We know that you've seen this in our advocacy highlights that I went out last Wednesday, when the governor addressed a joint meeting of the House and Senate. So funding, the biggest part of this all. The funding piece is static for the agreed upon 2017 bipartisan agreement for 10 years. So there's no change in the funding structure there. There was legislation last week and a half ago, what have you, to deal with a accelerated phase-in. That bill is still pending in the Education Committee. We certainly testified in support of that legislation. It would have held harmless districts that were on the phasing out, and then all the other districts would have been accelerated in their payments schedule. Again, that was not a part of what the governor's budget brought forward. This is the Education Committee saying we're going to try it again this year. So that remains in there. The next. Oops, too far. Okay, that's who we are. That's what I said. So we know that the governor has made certain, nope, that's too far. There we go. Okay, so in here, and the link is available to you, and the link was in the email we sent out on the 8th, are the town by town numbers for your district. You should receiving some technical education here. What do we need? Nothing. Okay, good. So town by town numbers are there. That second paragraph there, in all its jargon, does say that the special ed excess cost grant has been held to its capped level, as well as adult ed and the services you provide to private schools for health services. So those are grants that the legislature must say, the legislature must tell you what those full funding of those grants would be, but then they do cap those grants. So we'll move on from there. The governor has used ARPA funds to a program that he established in April of 2021, the Learner Attendance Engagement Program. He's allocating 10 million to that program. I'm sorry, 7 million to that program. That program has seen in a report issued in December from the department and its research arm, has seen increases in the LEAP program for specific increases for attendance by 15 to 20% when they are going and making home visits to certain homes in each of these districts that's involved in this program. And that was seen as a significant amount of increase in terms of increasing attendance at the district level. There is more information available on SDE's website if you just search under LEAP. There is, as it also notes there, 10 million for education and workforce development. We think the governor has a lot more emphasis on education, on workforce development. His appreciation for K-12 isn't as strong as his appreciation for workforce development, I guess is the best way to say that. So this is $10 million for workforce development in terms of helping to create jobs for paraprofessionals. If you are all struggling to find paraprofessionals, this money will certainly help, but then again, you've got to find that person that wants to take on that job. So that's certainly always part of the issue as well. Tech ed, governor's increasing his investment in technical education. The governor is using funds for making more of a collaboration or creating collaboration between SDE and the state university systems for dual enrollment programs for high school students. So we're encouraged to see something like that happen as well. Funding for, and then in the next paragraph there to say how it would be distributed to districts where the percentage of students that are seeking to go on to college is not as strong. So that's where the money would be allocated towards. This is, again, an appreciation for workforce development and education for childhood apprenticeship programs. And then looking at development specialist apprentices, combining the paid employment for classroom education to work towards training credential and improve career prospects. Further here is $2 million in 2023 for TPH to provide incentive grant for private psychiatric practices and other private entities to recruit and hire new child and adolescent psychiatrists. Or to retain them. So there was a big commitment, as you know, last year by the legislature and the governor to make SEL more present in school districts. So this is a continued commitment to work towards some of those community resources for school districts.
And we know that continues to be a challenge in terms of lack of available professionals to refer, particularly young people, to when they need those interventions. So this would be a step towards supporting a more robust pipeline in that area.
And then here is scholarships towards this university system for innovative programs to increase the number of nursing and mental health professionals. So again, a continued commitment at putting people behind those programs. The paraeducators, the governor is looking for, or has sought 1.8 million to SDE for paraeducator professional development. The funding will establish one new position, as well as use the ARPA funds for establishing education workforce development grant to support districts, including paraprofessionals. So there may be more support for other people that would help in districts besides paraprofessionals to help support academic recovery in districts. So we don't have all the details yet on many of these programs, but we're encouraged by the funding that's going forward. And then there is money in the Office of Workforce Strategy for HVAC pre-apprentice program pipeline. That pipeline program was established in legislation last year, and this is putting some funding behind that. And I'm sure many of you can tell us that you've had trouble finding, or maybe you didn't, but we expect you might have found trouble finding a professional and estimator to look at your HVAC systems as you work towards applying for some of the funding for HVAC. And I will note that tomorrow there is a public hearing in the Environment Committee on Senate Bill 961, which looks to do a whole lot more with solar and HVAC and energy efficiency. There are a tremendous amount of mandates involved in that piece of legislation. We will be offering testimony. And that, I guess, concludes with what we have said, as I see here. Yes.
And just to remind you that the emergency certified bill that the legislature adopted last week addresses the special ed excess cost grant to make sure that all of the funds that were appropriated for this year are able to be distributed to districts. And it also ensures, it appropriated $60 million to enable the free meals program to continue through the end of this school year.
Last week, the Children's Committee held a public hearing on the school meals program going forward. So not just this year, but beyond this year going forward. Senate Bill 929 is still in committee. We did offer testimony. We would encourage all of you to write to your members. Maybe you have somebody that serves on the Children's Committee. We would love to see that bill supported. We know that the governor has some concerns with districts that are able to afford, or individuals or parents that are able to afford school meals. And doing a universal program is something that he hasn't signed on to fully yet. So if this does involve your district, I would encourage you to contact the governor's office as well as your legislature. How many of you have invited your members to a board meeting? Let me pull down to see if I can find out who's.
You can use the raise hand feature to let us know.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Where do I?
Under the attendees.
There you go.
So far we have Bob Belden, Colleen Clark, Leonard.
Okay. I would really encourage all of you to make it a point to invite them to your district to a board meeting, or maybe just have a one-on-one with them. Corner them in the deli department or deli counter, whatever it may be. You need to open up those lines of communication to let them know how certain things are being implemented in your district, where you're using your ARPA funds, where you could use more funding, where you're having trouble with your staffing levels. The more you can educate them, the more they can advocate for you. If they don't serve on the education committee or the appropriations committee, they can still lobby their legislators, fellow legislators that do serve on those committees. So I would just encourage you to do so.
If they don't hear from you, they assume that you don't have any concerns about anything that's being proposed.
So we have some questions here. The first question is there 150 million in this budget to improve HVAC?
There's actually more than that. The governor, in one of the last slides, I think, had 300 million. Yeah, I'm sorry, that's pre-apprenticeship. Yes, there is money, I believe, in the governor's budget for HVAC, yes.
And we have a comment here. We would like to remind people to attend the CABE HSAA CREC Legislative Forum this Thursday at 8:45 at the state capitol in room 310. So
Absolutely. We'll be there. We hope to see many of you as well.
So the next question is, when will we know if House Bill 5003 passes? What is the timeline?
So every committee in the legislature has what they call a JF deadline, a joint favorable deadline. Connecticut's unique to any other state in the nation that they have joint committees, House and Senate members serving. And that deadline for the Education Committee is, I believe, March 20th. I'm going to forget now. I'm going to say 25th. So essentially you have to the middle of March before that bill would be voted out of committee. There is a meeting of the Education Committee this Wednesday, tomorrow. And the agenda will be out, I would say, shortly. So we would know whether or not that bill would be getting a vote out of committee early. I would expect it could very well be getting out of committee tomorrow. And then it will be go before the Appropriations Committee because of the funding associated with it. It wouldn't need another public hearing, it would just go for a vote.
And this is all part of the larger budget discussion. So I would realistically think that it would probably, regardless of when 5003 gets out of committee, that it will probably still be early June before we would have a definitive answer right before the session adjourns in terms of funding levels for education, because it's integral parts that all have to work together, and final decisions are not made on any one piece until all the pieces are put together and there are the votes to pass that package.
Yeah, and even still, we'll have a little better indicator after the Appropriations Committee votes, which would be, I would say, mid-April. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
So that's another hurdle in the process, I guess, is the best way to say that.
Other questions, Will Marie?
No other questions at the moment? We just got one. When will the governor sign to allow free lunch until the end of the year? What is the delay?
I don't know what the delay is. I think he has, counsel, his general counsel that needs to review the legislation. I would be surprised if that wasn't happening soon.
We'll pause for a minute and see if there are any additional questions.
So the next question is, what is the bill that you are testifying on in the Environment Committee tomorrow? What do we need to be aware of?
So Senate Bill 961, and if you just want to bear with me as I go through my highlighted version of the bill. 11-page bill. So it would be means, on or after July 1, 2024, any new construction, replacement, or extension of a public building shall be net zero energy. Let's see. After July 1, 2023, for grants, demonstrate how the project will achieve net zero energy to the greatest extent practicable, which is always an interesting phrase because who determines that? Each public school shall commission a solar power feasibility study. If the proposed solar power system is determined to be cost effective, the superintendent shall secure funding not later than January of 2028. Superintendent shall prioritize projects by greenhouse gas emissions reductions, cost effectiveness, and first undertake the project that offers the best combination of such factors. If it's not cost effective, we'll allow the roof a roof to support a solar system going forward when you replace a roof. Not later than July 1, 2025, shall commission an energy efficiency feasibility study, which is different than a solar power feasibility study. Make improvements if you see it cost efficient, and replace when you see such older equipment becomes inoperable. Inoperative. Make available training for operations and management on such solar systems to public school maintenance staff. There is established a public school solar and energy efficiency board to be located within the Connecticut Green Bank. Some of their responsibilities are to supervise a program that provides technical assistance to school districts, supervise a program that offers technical assistance, project development, and public education and training for officials of school business, school districts. Goes on from there. 60% of the initial amount of funding for the Net Zero Schools Loan Program should be allotted to in accordance with the formula determined by Public School Solar Efficiency Board. 40% would be to environmental justice communities based on a competitive basis. Page 9 out of 11. Each school district shall notify the Department of Administrative Services of such district's intention to undertake a solar power and energy improvement program. The reporting requirement. Department of Administrative Services shall review the proposed energy improvement project not later than 30 days. Each public school shall measure and report annually to this public school solar and energy efficient board on the district's energy consumption, solar generation, subsequent greenhouse gas emissions, using an Energy Star portfolio manager or an equivalent platform. Such superintendent shall annually report to the state the solar power and energy efficient system in each school building. District shall include climate change impacts such as flooding, sea level rise, increased storm surges, and risk of such districts' real property asset assessment and management. Separate from that, but in this bill, each public school shall display informational poster on emissions and from idling vehicles, and shall post an anti-idling signs on or after January 1, 2025. School shall be heated at a temperature of not less than 65 degrees and not greater than 72 degrees during cold weather, and cooled not greater than 75 and not less than 70 during hot. Require all districts to periodically test water samples from all taps for drinking and cooking in school facilities for the presence of lead. Remediate sources of lead containment when lead is detected. Notwithstanding, for any new school construction submitted to DAS on or after January of 2024, shall include a requirement for installation of a school kitchen with a dishwasher and shall indicate the manner in which solid waste, including recycling and food scraps, will be sorted and collected at such facility.
That's a lot of reporting, a lot of study that districts would need to undertake, and not to lose sight of the fact that the piece about the temperature ranges that you have to maintain in schools, were this to be passed, was contained in legislation that was considered during the last legislative session, which was not enacted by the General Assembly.
But unlike last year's legislation, this doesn't say you must close school,
right,
or send students home. This is just looking for that rating. I'm sorry, it's setting a standard.
Other questions?
Not at this moment.
And hopefully you have all marked your calendars for CABE's Day on the Hill, which will be March 8th this year. and it will be a free event. It will take place at the Legislative Office Building, and it should be a wonderful opportunity for you to have in-person conversations with your legislators. We will also be offering a webinar a few days before March 8th in order to brief you on the various issues that are pending and where they are in the process.
I still don't have any more questions at this time.
All right then. I think we will let everyone get on with their day. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.